My name is Shanice Godfrey, and while my sister was telling her book club that I was still trying to figure out my life at 40, I was coordinating the extraction of a compromised asset from a hostile foreign capital with a 72-hour window before execution. The studio apartment in Alexandria was real. The two roommates were real. What my family didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that the studio was a cover address maintained by the agency for exactly this purpose. The roommates were junior analysts who understood operational security. The whole construction was designed to provide a believable backstory for someone whose actual life couldn't be explained at family dinners. My sister Casey had always needed to win. Even as children, she'd measured her worth by comparison. Better grades, better boyfriends, better everything. When she'd married Gregory Whitmore 3 years ago, a finance executive from old Connecticut money, she'd finally found the ultimate scorecard: wealth, status, the kind of life that announced itself in country club memberships and summer houses in the Hamptons. I'd been happy for her, genuinely. I'd even managed to make it to the wedding, though I'd had to leave early for what I'd told them was a work emergency, in reality, a time-sensitive operation in Azerbaijan that couldn't wait. But Casey's happiness had always been conditional on my relative failure, and from her perspective, at 43, I was failing spectacularly. Between jobs was the phrase she'd settled on. It had started 2 years ago at Thanksgiving, when she'd asked what I was doing for work, and I'd given my standard vague answer: government contracting. Consulting work, mostly. But like, what company? What do you actually do? It's complicated, a lot of different projects. She'd translated complicated as unemployed and too proud to admit it. By Christmas, she was telling our mother I was struggling. By Easter, she'd upgraded it to really struggling and had started offering to connect me with Gregory's friends who might know of something. I'd declined politely. Repeatedly. The truth was, I'd been with the CIA for 21 years. The last 8 as a senior operations officer, running clandestine operations across 3 continents. My GS-15 salary was $165,000, but that barely scratched the surface of the operational budget I controlled or the resources I could access. But I couldn't tell them that. Not my mother, not Casey, not anyone outside the compartmented world I actually inhabited. The cover story, the studio apartment, the vague employment, the appearance of financial struggle wasn't just for my family. It was for anyone who might be watching. Foreign intelligence services, criminal organizations, the kind of people who'd love to find leverage against a CIA operations officer. So I lived small, dressed unremarkably, drove a 12-year-old Subaru, and endured my family's pity with quiet dignity, because the alternative was risking everything I'd built. Last month, I'd been at my mother's house for Sunday dinner. Casey had arrived in their new Mercedes SUV. Gregory's bonus was spectacular this year, wearing what I recognized as a Burberry coat. "Shanice, honey, you look tired," my mother had said, that edge of worry that was really judgment creeping into her voice. "Are you eating enough? That apartment, those roommates, it's not healthy for someone your age." "I'm fine, Mom." "You're not fine. You're 43 years old, living like a college student." She'd glanced at Casey for support. "Tell her." Casey had smiled sympathetically. "We just want to help, Shay. I know it's hard to admit when things aren't working out, but there's no shame in accepting help from family." "I don't need help." "Everyone needs help sometimes," Casey had continued, her voice dripping with concern. "Gregory knows people. We could set up some interviews. Real jobs, with benefits and security. You can't keep drifting like this." Drifting. Like my career was aimless wandering instead of 2 decades of classified service. "I appreciate it, but I'm good." "You're not good." The sharpness in Casey's voice had broken through the sympathetic facade. "You're living in a studio apartment with roommates. You can't even afford a car made in this decade. You show up to family events in thrift store clothes, and you expect us to believe you're fine?" "Casey," my mother had warned. "No, Mom. Someone needs to say it. She's wasting her life. She's brilliant. She could be doing something real, something important. Instead, she's... Casey had waved her hand vaguely. Whatever this is. I'd cut my chicken, said nothing. See, she won't even defend herself, because she knows I'm right. The thing about clandestine operations is that you learn to separate your emotional reactions from your strategic response. You learn to absorb insults, threats, even physical pain, while maintaining operational security. You learn that your ego is a luxury you can't afford. So I'd smiled blandly and changed the subject, and later I'd driven home in my ancient Subaru to my studio apartment, where my roommates, analysts studying signals intelligence patterns in North Africa, were working on laptops with security clearances my sister couldn't imagine existed. Then, 2 weeks ago, I'd gotten the call about the asset extraction. Falcon was a source I'd been running for 4 years, a mid-level official in a hostile government who'd been providing intelligence on weapons transfers. High value, high risk, increasingly paranoid. We'd been planning to pull him out when he retired in 6 months, but something had spooked him. His last communication, buried in a dead drop we monitored, was 2 words: compromised, help. The operational window was 72 hours. After that, his arrest was likely, and his knowledge of CIA operations would be exploited through interrogation methods we couldn't prevent. I'd spent 3 days coordinating assets across 2 continents, arranging transportation, securing safe houses, negotiating with liaison services, running the kind of high-wire operation that required absolute focus and 0 mistakes. And in the middle of it, Casey had called. "Shay, amazing news!" Gregory proposed again. Well, not proposed, but he wants to do a vow renewal ceremony. 1-year anniversary celebration. And we're doing it big this time. Country club, formal reception, the works. That's great, Casey. Congratulations. You'll come, right? It's this Saturday. I know it's short notice, but please say yes. It would mean so much to have my sister there. And honestly, her voice had dropped to a whisper, Gregory's family is going to be there. All of them. His mother is already asking questions about you, about why you weren't at more of the wedding events. I need you there, Shay. I need you to show up and be normal. Saturday was extraction day. I'd be coordinating from a tactical operations center in Langley, managing the moving parts of a mission that could go catastrophically wrong in a dozen different ways. I'll try, I'd said, which we both knew meant no. You always do this, you always have some excuse, some vague work thing that's more important than family. Casey, I genuinely can't. Of course you can't, because you don't actually have anything important going on, do you? You just don't want to face the fact that your life is a mess compared to mine. The line had gone quiet, not dead, but that specific silence that meant she'd said something she half regretted but wouldn't take back. I'll be there, I'd heard myself say. Really? Yes. What time? 3 o'clock. Formal dress. And Shay, please try to look nice. Borrow something if you have to. I'd hung up and stared at my phone, wondering what operational insanity had possessed me to make that promise. Then I'd called my deputy, a sharp analyst named Rodriguez, who'd been with me for 3 years. Change of plans. We're moving the extraction to Friday night. I need Saturday clear. Ma'am, that compresses our timeline significantly. I know, make it work. We'd made it work. Barely. The extraction had gone down at 11 p.m. Friday night. Falcon crossing a border checkpoint, using documents we'd provided, picked up by an agency vehicle, transported to a safe house, and from there to a military airbase for exfiltration. I'd watched the operation unfold from Langley, my phone receiving encrypted updates every 15 minutes. At 2:30 a.m. Saturday morning, I'd gotten the confirmation, package secure, mission complete. I'd driven home as the sun was rising, slept for 3 hours, and then stared at my closet trying to figure out what formal dress meant in Casey's world. The Ritz-Carlton Tyson's Corner Country Club was exactly the kind of place that announced wealth through understatement. Manicured lawns, discreet staff, the kind of venue where the price tags had been removed because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. I'd arrived at 2:45 p.m. wearing a simple black dress I'd bought years ago for a diplomatic reception in Brussels. It was appropriate, but next to the designer gowns and statement jewelry of Casey's new social circle, it might as well have been burlap. The ceremony was small, just the vow renewal with immediate family, but the reception afterward was packed. Gregory's family had turned out in force. Parents, siblings, cousins, business partners, all of them radiating the kind of casual confidence that came from never questioning their place in the world. I'd found a corner near the bar and tried to be invisible. My mother found me first. "Shanice, you came!" She'd hugged me, then held me at arm's length, examining my dress with barely concealed disappointment. "Well, you look nice." "Thanks, Mom." "Casey will be so happy. She was worried you'd bail again." "I said I'd be here." "I know, honey, I know." She'd patted my arm. "Come, let me introduce you to some people. Gregory's mother is lovely, very interested in meeting you." The introductions had been a series of small humiliations disguised as polite conversation. "This is my daughter Shanice. She works in government? Consulting?" "How interesting. What kind of consulting?" "Oh, various projects. Very flexible schedule." The way my mother said flexible schedule made it sound like a euphemism for unemployment. Gregory's mother, Victoria Whitmore, was everything I'd expected. Impeccably dressed, perfectly coiffed, the kind of woman who'd perfected the art of the polite evisceration. "How wonderful to finally meet you, Shanice. Casey speaks of you so often." "It's nice to meet you too, Mrs. Whitmore." "Please, Victoria. We're family now." She'd smiled warmly, but her eyes were conducting an assessment. "Casey mentioned you're between positions at the moment?" "I'm a contractor. Project-based work." "How modern, and where are you living these days?" "Alexandria." "Oh, lovely area. Do you have one of those new condos near the waterfront?" "A studio, actually, closer to the metro." Her smile had frozen for just a fraction of a second. "A studio. How practical." The afternoon had continued in that vein, small conversations that felt like interrogations, polite questions that revealed the yawning gap between my cover story and their expectations. I'd nursed a single glass of wine and counted the minutes until I could leave. Then Casey had found me. She'd been glowing, radiant in a cream-colored gown that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Gregory was at her side, his arm around her waist, both of them the picture of successful matrimony. "Shay, there you are!" She'd hugged me, and I'd caught a whiff of champagne. "I'm so glad you made it. Gregory's parents want to do a toast with both families. Come on." We'd gathered in the main reception area, a beautiful space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the golf course. Maybe 50 people in total, all holding champagne flutes, all watching as Gregory's father prepared to give a speech. But before he could start, Casey had grabbed the microphone. "Before the official toasts, I just want to say something." Her voice was slightly too loud, just tipsy enough to be dangerous. "I am so blessed, so incredibly blessed to have found Gregory, to be part of this amazing family." She gestured to the Whitmores, who'd smiled and nodded. "And I'm blessed to have my own family here, my mom, who supported me through everything." She'd blown a kiss to our mother, and my sister Shanice. My stomach had clenched. "Shanice and I have had such different paths. She's the older sister, the one we all thought would do amazing things. Full scholarship to Georgetown, brilliant, capable. Everyone thought she'd change the world." The room was quiet now, everyone watching. "But life doesn't always work out the way we plan, does it?" Casey's smile was sad, sympathetic. "That's my sister. She's been between jobs for 3 years, lives in a studio with 2 roommates." Laughter. Not cruel exactly, but pitying. The kind of laughter that said, "Thank God that's not us." Gregory's mother had actually gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "Oh, you poor thing!" I'd stood there, frozen, every eye in the room on me. This was the moment where I was supposed to defend myself, to push back, to do something. But I couldn't. Because anything I said would be either a lie or a security breach, and I'd spent 21 years learning that operational security trumped personal dignity. So I just smiled slightly, said nothing, and felt something crack inside my chest. Then the club manager had burst through the patio doors, breathless and agitated, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on me. "Ma'am, your helicopter landing disrupted the golf course again. Should we clear the usual pad?" The silence was absolute. Everyone turned to look at me. Casey's smile had frozen. Gregory's mother's champagne flute was halfway to her lips, suspended in mid-air. The manager had rushed over, speaking directly to me now, not my sister. "I apologize for the interruption, but the last time this happened, you requested we notify you immediately. Should I direct them to the north pad, or will you need the vehicle brought around?" My phone had started buzzing in my clutch. I'd pulled it out. 3 messages from Rodriguez, each marked urgent. The helicopter wasn't supposed to be here, which meant something had gone catastrophically wrong with the extraction. I'd looked at the messages. The last one was clear. Falcon compromised at Exfil Point. Emergency extraction required. Asset requesting personal guarantee from handler before boarding. Need you on site ASAP. My handler, me. He wouldn't get on the plane without hearing my voice, without my personal confirmation that it was safe. Which meant I had maybe 90 minutes before we lost him entirely. I'd looked up at the manager. "North pad? Tell them 20 minutes. "Of course, ma'am, the vehicle is already waiting at the east entrance." He'd hurried off, speaking into his radio. I'd turned back to the crowd. 50 faces, all staring at me with expressions ranging from confusion to shock to dawning realization. Casey was pale. What just happened? I'd set down my wine glass carefully, smoothing my dress. "I need to go." "You have a helicopter?" Gregory's mother had managed, her voice faint. "I have access to several, actually, depending on operational requirements." "Operational," Casey had started, then stopped. "Shay, what do you actually do?" I'd looked at my sister, at the perfect life she'd built, the perfect story she'd constructed about our relative positions in the world. At 21 years of classified service collapsing into this single moment. "I'm a senior operations officer with the Central Intelligence Agency," I'd said quietly. "I've held that position for 8 years. Before that, I was a case officer running assets in hostile territories. The studio apartment is a cover address. The roommates are junior analysts. The between jobs story is operational security protocol because my actual work is classified and my real identity could be leveraged against me by foreign intelligence services." The silence stretched like taffy. "The helicopter is here because I'm coordinating an emergency asset extraction that's gone wrong. Someone I've been running for 4 years is in danger, and he won't get on the evacuation plane without hearing my voice personally confirming it's safe." I checked my phone again. I have approximately 87 minutes to get to Joint Base Andrews, which is why I need the helicopter. The usual pad is because this isn't the first time I've had to divert here for operational emergencies. I'd picked up my clutch. "Congratulations on your vow renewal, Casey. I am truly happy for you." Then I'd walk toward the east entrance, my heels clicking on the marble floor, 50 pairs of eyes tracking my movement. Behind me, I'd heard something glass shatter, someone's champagne flute hitting the floor. I'd heard my mother's voice, weak and confused, but she said she was a contractor. I'd heard Victoria Whitmore whisper to her husband, "Did she just say CIA?" I'd kept walking. The vehicle was a black SUV with diplomatic plates, driver already behind the wheel. He'd opened the door as I approached. "Andrews, ma'am." "Fast as you can." The helicopter was an agency bird, unmarked but unmistakable to anyone who knew what to look for. The pilot had given me a headset as I'd climbed aboard, and we'd lifted off over the golf course, where several players had stopped mid-swing to stare. From the air, I could see the country club receding below me, the perfect lawns, the elegant reception space, my family standing on the patio looking up at me. "Rodriguez," I'd said into the headset, patching through the secure comms. "Give me status." "Falcon is at the airfield but refusing to board. Border guards got suspicious during his crossing, ran a secondary check. He thinks he's been compromised, that the extraction is a trap. He's demanding voice confirmation from you personally before he'll move." ETA to Andrews? 12 minutes at current speed. Tell him I'm coming, tell him I'm in the air right now and I'll be there in 12 minutes. Tell him to trust me. Copy that, ma'am. I'd closed my eyes, feeling the adrenaline of the mission mixing with the emotional whiplash of the scene I'd just left. My phone had started ringing. Casey. I'd let it go to voicemail. Then my mother. Voicemail. Then Casey again. On the fourth call, I'd answered. Shay. I can't talk right now, Casey. I'm working. You're CIA. Her voice was hollow. You've been CIA this whole time. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? Because operational security is more important than your opinion of my life choices. I'm sorry, but I really do have to go. Someone's life is literally depending on me right now. All those years you let us think. I let you think what you wanted to think. You never actually asked, Casey, you just assumed. That's not fair. Maybe not, but it's true. The pilot was signaling we were 3 minutes out. I have to go, we'll talk later. Shay, wait. I'd ended the call. The extraction had gone smoothly after that. Falcon had heard my voice, had confirmed the authentication codes we'd established years ago, and had boarded the plane. By 5:30 p.m., he was in the air, heading toward a new life and a new identity in a country where he'd never have to look over his shoulder again. By 7 p.m., I was back in my studio apartment in Alexandria, my roommates tactfully absent, still wearing the black dress for my sister's reception. My phone had 17 missed calls, 12 from Casey, 3 from my mother, 2 from numbers I didn't recognize. There were also 6 texts from Casey. Why didn't you tell us? Mom is freaking out. Gregory's parents think I lied to them about you. This is so humiliating. Everyone is asking questions. We need to talk. I'd sat on my bed, exhausted, and typed back a single message. I'm sorry you're embarrassed. I'm not sorry for doing my job or for maintaining operational security. Those are the requirements of the life I chose. We can talk when you're ready to hear that. She'd responded immediately. I don't know if I can forgive you for this. I'd stared at that message for a long time. Then I'd typed, I'm not asking you to forgive me, I'm asking you to see me, there's a difference. No response. I'd taken off the dress, put on sweats, and made tea. Then I'd sat at my window, looking out at the lights of Alexandria, thinking about the life I'd built in the shadows, and the family who'd never understood why I needed the darkness. 2 days later, my mother had called. I don't know what to say, she'd started. I've been trying to process this. You've really been working for the CIA all this time? Yes, Mom. For how long? 21 years. A long pause. I'm your mother. How did I not know? Because I couldn't tell you. Because the less you knew, the safer you were. Because if foreign intelligence services knew who my family was, you'd become targets for leverage or recruitment or worse. Is it dangerous, what you do? Sometimes. Could you be killed? Mom, could you? It's possible, but I'm very good at my job and I'm very careful. Another pause. Casey is devastated. She feels like you made a fool of her, in front of Gregory's entire family. I didn't make a fool of her. She made assumptions, and those assumptions turned out to be wrong. That's not the same thing. She says, you deliberately misled us. I maintained operational security. There's a difference. I'd taken a breath. Mom, I understand this is hard. I understand you feel betrayed or confused or whatever you're feeling. But I need you to understand something. I have spent 2 decades doing work that matters. Work that saves lives. Work that protects this country in ways you'll never read about in the newspaper. And I've done it while letting my own family think I was a failure, because that was what the job required. Silence. I'm proud of what I do, I'd continued. I'm proud of the life I've built, even if it doesn't look like success to you, and I'm not going to apologize for that. No one's asking you to apologize. Casey is. She's hurt. I know, but her hurt doesn't erase the fact that she spent years mocking me, pitying me, assuming I was wasting my life. That hurt too, Mom. It hurt every single time, and I endured it because the mission was more important than my ego. My mother had been crying. I could hear it in her breathing. I'm sorry, she'd finally said. I'm so sorry, Shanice. We should have trusted you. We should have known you were doing something important, even if we didn't understand what it was. Yeah, you should have. Can you forgive us? I'd thought about that. About forgiveness and family and the price of secrets. I can try, I'd said. But Mom, I need you to stop seeing my life as a failure just because it doesn't look like Casey's. Different doesn't mean less. I understand. Do you? I'm trying to. We'd hung up with nothing fully resolved, but at least acknowledged. Casey didn't call for 3 weeks. When she finally did, her voice was small, subdued. I've been thinking about what you said, about assumptions. Okay? You're right. I never actually asked what you did. I just decided, based on what I could see. Yeah. I'm sorry for that. For the things I said, for the way I talked about you, especially at the reception. That was cruel. It was. I was jealous, she'd said quietly, of your independence, of the fact that you didn't need our approval or validation. I convinced myself you were struggling because it was easier than admitting that you'd just chosen a path I didn't understand. I'd felt something loosen in my chest. I didn't tell you because I couldn't, Casey, not because I didn't trust you. The operational security requirements are real. I know that now. Gregory's father has some friends in government. They explain some things about how intelligence work actually functions, about cover identities and security clearances and why people in your position can't just announce what they do. And I feel like an idiot for not seeing it, for not questioning why someone as smart as you would actually be drifting through life. She'd paused. The helicopter thing was insane, by the way. Victoria Whitmore spent 3 days calling everyone she knows trying to figure out who you are. Despite everything, I'd smiled. What did she find out? Nothing. It's like you don't exist in any normal databases, which apparently means you exist in abnormal databases, which is somehow more impressive. Something like that. Can we start over, not forget everything, but just try again, with honesty this time? I'd thought about the asset I'd extracted, about the life he'd left behind, about starting over in a new identity with a new story. Yeah, I'd said. We can try. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't immediate forgiveness or instant understanding, but it was real, and that was something. 6 months later, I'm still a senior operations officer, still running operations that most people will never know about. Still living in the studio apartment in Alexandria, because the cover address serves a purpose, and changing it would require updating too many files. But my family knows now, not the details, those are still classified, but the outline, the shape of my real life, even if they can't see inside it. My mother introduces me differently now. This is my daughter Shanice. She works for the government. I can't tell you exactly what she does, but I'm very proud of her. Casey and I have dinner once a month. We don't talk about my work much. She's learned to recognize when a topic is classified, but we talk about other things, real things. Last week she'd asked me, "Do you like it, the secrecy, the double life?" I'd thought about that. I like the work. The secrecy is just the cost of doing it well. Do you ever wish you could tell people, get recognition for what you do? Sometimes. But the people who matter know. My colleagues know. The assets I protect know. That's enough. She'd nodded slowly. I think I'm starting to understand that. That impact isn't always visible. No, I'd agreed. It's not. Quote, the truth is, I'll probably never get public recognition for the work I do. No medals ceremony, no newspaper profile, no acknowledgement beyond the classified commendations that sit in a file only a handful of people will ever read. But I'll know. And in the end, in the quiet moments between operations, that knowledge that I'm doing something that matters, something that protects people who'll never know my name, that's the only recognition I need. The rest is just noise.